This is the story of one who would soon become known as the $1,000 Man and the Panacea Doctor. The story of an extraordinary physician. The day before Sajal turned 15, he lost his status and the roof over his head. His father disinherited him and excluded him from the family tree of the Dukes of Ardek. From this day forward, the heir would be Manga, on whom the head of the family had high hopes. The smug fellow knew that would be the case. It's not like they could entrust the title of Duke to someone like Sajal. Sajal von Ardek had spent his life diligently studying to become a worthy heir to the Duke. However, after his mother's death, his stepmother took her place as his lawful wife, and Sajal's position in the mansion changed completely. Manga, his half-brother, the stepmother, who wants to make her son the heir, and Manga, who grew up to be a despot, mutilated and tortured him from time to time. Without any remorse, he was moved to the sidelines. His father decided to just turn a blind eye to it, and that became a green flag for them. A blessing ceremony is held on the 13th anniversary. As the gift of the sword god, Manga received the skill Sword Emperor, conventionally considered the strongest skill. Sajal, on the other hand, received the gift of the goddess Amalia, life magic, a useless skill for an aristocrat, also known as the skill of losers. Besides, goddess Amalia isn't the most famous deity. Even the priests from the ceremony had it written on their faces that they didn't know her. The Duke declared that he no longer intends to maintain a life magic wielder at the expense of the ducal house, so he demanded that he leave the mansion by tomorrow morning and not use the surname Ardek from now on. Walking down the corridor, Sajal thought about the fact that his father shouldn't see him. It's not only for him, but also for his stepmother and Manga. There was a pretty girl waiting for him, Pomeris, a dark elf and his personal maid. The girl was surprised to find the young lord in high spirits despite being stripped of his status and inheritance. She had heard everything. Remembering Madam, the maid thought, she is now crushed with grief. Sajal knew that Mom would have given up all this too. Pal had come to this house along with his mother. She has already passed away and he, her son, is leaving this house forever. Naturally, Pal will leave with him. He has been given until tomorrow morning, but the sooner he leaves the better. So he wants to leave now. Pal, who was going to leave the house with him, has already packed. To begin with, the guy suggested to go to his grandfather and tell him everything. Digo Barony is the place where his maternal grandparents live. It is an area far away from the capital, which is a huge city surrounded by walls. The bumpy road makes the carriage shake. Sajal remembered to check his status. Amalia, the goddess from whom he received his gift, is the goddess of creation. The goddess of creation is the deity who created this world. Although her name Amalia is not widely known, but somehow she is the creator god, chief among the deities. In other words, he is patronized by the supreme god. If his stepmother had found out, it would have been a scandal. Fortunately, no one in the duchy checked his status. If it turned out that he had received a gift from the creator god, then the king himself would have approved his status as the heir. If that were the case, his stepmother would have already organized a hunt for his head. For her, Manga must be the heir. Before revealing his gift to everyone, Sajal must become stronger. Even away from the duchy, he cannot let his guard down. The maid announced that they were traveling to Baron Digo's territory. Even the king's army will have to try hard to capture this place. Sajal doesn't regret losing his status as an aristocrat. Perhaps it is because he has retained the memories of his two previous lives. In the life before last he was a sage. In his previous life he had already been called a great sage. With his memories back, he wondered how to live this life. The answer was obvious. He decided to do what he had not had time to do in his past lives. He wants to see the white world. He still has a lot to learn about this world. But if he wants to travel without fear for his life, he needs to become stronger. It has been many years since their last meeting with Roxvale. They had expected the young master to arrive a little earlier. The butler led the guest to his grandfather, Baron India's Digo. Overjoyed, the old man threw himself into the maid's arms, but his face hit the floor. The boy announced his banishment from the ducal family. The grandfather was most interested in Pal, who still couldn't reciprocate him. That old pervert hasn't changed at all. He had better get on with it soon. And this is the same successful baron who runs the Baldigo Trading Company, the largest in the kingdom. The old man didn't seem to be listening to him at all, but the news had gotten to that point. Then, having accomplished his task, Sajal was about to leave him with Pal. India slowed down the guests by saying that at last he could socialize with his charming grandson, provided that there would be Pal. A sweet old lady appeared at the door, looking still as fresh despite her years. According to her, Grandpa was looking forward to little Sai's arrival. She asked to keep him company a little longer. The boy couldn't refuse his grandmother. The woman was touched by the story told by her grandson. Sajal informed her of his plans. To begin with, he was thinking of working in a clinic in the capital and becoming an adventurer to gain strength and experience. As for the clinic, it was perfect for practicing his magic. His magic of life, that is, creation, is fundamentally different from how most people imagine it. He can use attack spells, but support spells are more effective, and they raise his skill level faster. Magic, capable of embodying everything necessary for sustenance. An omnipotent skill that allows him to use any spell based on his needs. Once he gathers his strength, he will travel. He wants to see the world. Grandma laughed, remarking that all boys are the same. But Grandpa India's was adamantly against it. If Sajal goes anywhere, then Sweet Pal will go with him, and he can't allow that. For these words, he got a slap on the cap from his wife, who seemed fragile at first sight. She wished that little Sai could do whatever his heart desired. Of course, that included Pal. Pal is usually sarcastic to everyone, but she is extremely polite to her grandmother. Sajal thinks it's all about the broad-mindedness of the grandmother. Arriving in the capital, the lad approached Johnson, a shopkeeper under the auspices of the Baldigo Company. He was interested in renting a detached house at a low price, preferably as close to the slums in commoners' neighborhoods as possible. The old man just had one suitable option. The house is right on the border between the slum and the commoners' neighborhood. There's a bit of a problem with it, though. The place has a bad reputation. But that's not the only problem. This is the Manish's family mansion, said a maid mysteriously appeared behind. Both of them were startled. The lad almost had a heart attack from the surprise. The old man was a step away from death. It seemed rather rude to her. After all, she had been here all the time. Johnson was extremely unhappy, for she had almost sent him to the other side of the world. The girl stated that he wouldn't have died so easily. Johnson and Pal have known each other for a long time. At first glance, it seems as if they are only fighting, but they are actually very close. These two are still acting the same way. Pal is a dark elf, so she hasn't changed at all from when Sajal was just a child, although she's actually several hundred years old. Adopting an extremely intimidating look, Pal, as if sensing it, asked if the young master had just thought of something rude. Dazed with fear, he replied that he would not have dared to do so. She asked him to be more careful from now on. He realized that it was impossible to even think about her real age. As for the house, Pomerus was right. It is the Manish's family mansion. About 20 years ago, the entire Manish's family was brutally murdered in that mansion. Something's been living there ever since. Sajal correctly surmised that it was inhabited by spirits. He thought that if spirits were the problem, why not call a priest? It's an expensive but effective way. But it turned out that the priest they were inviting had been killed by a curse of the spirits. A couple of people tried to tear down the mansion, but after a few days, they too all passed away. This mansion does not belong to Johnson now. The deeds to it belong to a dealer he knows, but as they are realizing by now, no one wants to buy it. Sajal didn't see this as a problem. He could well get rid of the spirits. Since this is Sajal, who received a gift from the goddess of creation, it should work. As his grandfather's right-hand man, Johnson is responsible for running several companies located in the capital. He's also one of the few who know the truth about his gift. A shiver ran through Sajal's body, and the maid leaned against him in an effort to warm. Feeling embarrassed, the young master pushed her away, showing stubbornness. This mansion looks as good as new. It doesn't look like the mansion of a poor aristocrat. Besides, there are no houses around the property. It looked suspicious. Sajal asked if the realtor was really fine with the fact that they would only pay 5 silver per month to live there. Originally, the price for renting such a mansion would have been at least 3 large gold coins, but as Sandal said, some circumstances had affected it. The mansion emits an ominous aura and Sajal felt it. Because of this negative influence, people can't live nearby, so they abandon their homes. And when the abandoned houses became dilapidated, they were simply demolished. Sandal has no idea what is inside this house. He will never enter this mansion in his life, hoping that they will understand him. Then, Sajal supposed he might go in there. The realtor had warned them in advance that they were not responsible for what might happen to them there. He handed them the key. The boys entered the grounds of the creepy mansion. A strong wind blew. Tal felt a strong pressure. It seems that the spirit is quite strong. As far as Sajal knows, in the whole country, even in the whole world, Pal is the 12th strongest. And this same Pal says that the spirit is strong. This is a good chance to apply the magic of life. Sajal carried out a search for enemies. Intelligence magic displays the nearest allies in blue, civilians in yellow, and enemies in red on the map. There are 7 red markings in the mansion, but are they all ghosts? Sajal asked if they planned to raise the rent immediately after he got rid of the spirits. Sandal enthusiastically stated that if everything worked out, they would give him another mansion at a low price. At this point, Sajal decided to leave the mansion. The realtor clung to his leg, begging him to exorcise the spirits. There is so much space being wasted here. Once the spirits are exorcised, the value of this property will skyrocket. There's no doubt that the mansion will be bought for a lot of money. He'll take a share of it. Sajal stipulated that he would rent this mansion to them for 5 small silvers per month for an unlimited period of time. The realtor regretted the loss but agreed. Sajal had one more condition. In case he succeeded in exorcising the spirits, as a reward he wanted 5 large gold coins. Doesn't the land surrounding the mansion belong to Sandal? If he put it to work, the profit would be at least 1,000 large gold coins. What is 5 coins worth to him when it could turn into 1,000? Sandal admitted that Mr. Sajal had him beat. He will pay him 5 big gold pieces, so he asks him to deal with the spirits. Sajal threatened that if the realtor broke their deal, a curse would fall on him. Surely that nice front door must have cost a lot of money. They went inside. The decoration in the mansion was every bit as good as the Duke's house. There was a heavy, oppressive atmosphere here, hostile to the living. Hal rose to the young master's defense. The spirits with which she did battle were too many. It was a treat for his eyes, for her thighs were as beautiful as ever. The girl inquired if he had a plan. He has one, but not the most exquisite. The area of the holy barrier that he applied was supreme magic. Even before he received the divine gift, he could use a couple spells based on knowledge from past lives. But he wouldn't have been able to do that before. Now, he could freely control such a large-scale spell. This was followed by a compression. The opponent was a creature whose body consisted of nothing but bones. A total of 6 supreme ghosts and 1 lick. It turned out that there were monsters behind the spirit story. It was good that they hadn't flown around the city yet. They're probably attached to this mansion. The lick is the result of the evolution of a supreme ghost, a strong monster. Now it's clear how they defeated an ordinary priest. Sajal understands how they feel, but isn't it easier to accept and rest in peace? Do they know who killed them? Sajal's goal was to get in touch with them. Hal guessed that he was trying to dialogue with them. Sajal believes the barrier helps him understand them and them understand him. That is what he is all about. Hal has noticed that in the whole world he is the only one able to communicate with the Lick. Still, he understands the Lick's resentment. He had faced a similar situation. The Lick seems to want revenge on those who killed them, but he doesn't know where they are or if they're even alive. The Lick says that rather than die like this, he'd rather submit to Sajal, and in exchange wants him to find those responsible. The lad explained that since it happened 20 years ago, there was no guarantee that he would find them. But the Lick was still willing. The Lick says he remembers the faces, but they might have changed in 20 years. With that much information, it would be hard to find the perpetrators. Hal suddenly thought, after all, if he can't find the culprits or if he doesn't want to spend a lot of time on it, what's to stop him from taming it? Even if he expels them, she doubts that they will rest in peace, so she thinks it is better to give them a little hope. Sajal understood all that the Lick was hoarding within himself. The girl laughed ominously. If the Lick became their servant, she could be more frequent with the young master. There it was, the true reason. Sajal doesn't know if he will succeed in avenging him, but he will try. After these words, he tamed him. A sunny morning came. An elegant man informed the gentleman that breakfast was ready. This is the Lick, Soldric Manishes, the man who built this mansion. After being tamed, he evolved into the Lick spirit race and regained his human form. Originally, Soldric was a merchant. 20 years ago, he and his entire family were killed by rebellious servants. He remembers the faces and names of all the servants well, but Sajal isn't sure if he can recognize them after all this time. Among the inhabitants of the mansion was a girl named Artemis. Hal taught her household things that every maid needs to know. Artemis is the daughter of Soldric. She evolved from a supreme ghost into a Lick doll. There is no forgiveness for those servants who killed that child 20 years ago. No matter how angry they were at Soldric, there was no need to kill the child. Sajal had intended to tame only the Lick, but as it turned out, they were a unit, so he tamed all of them. The other ghosts have evolved into Licks, but they cannot take on human form, and since Sajal tamed them, they are now free to leave the mansion, which means that he has broken the curse. The stories about the spirits have subsided and life is boiling around the mansion. Sandal told him that he would buy up the surrounding land while it was still cheap. After all, the other landowners do not yet know that Sajal has tamed the spirits. As for the name, he has discarded the name Sajal. He is now Sai. Just Sai. He got lodging and over and above that additional people. so the next thing is a clinic that he can open up. Sai and Pal opened a clinic, but the girl was incredibly bored in it. Guy informed Johnson about his visit to the Adventurers Guild and registration, but no one wanted to give him an errand because they figured he was completely new. Doesn't Johnson think that's overdoing it? He also informed him that his name would now consist of the short form. The old man asked if Mr. Sai had come to see him today just to chat. The guy came to talk about how he could make money. Sai wants to entrust him with the sale of the Red Dragon. It was a great rarity, plus it didn't have a scratch on it. Johnson said to rely on him. They will set a minimum price of 150,000 large gold. It would take 40% to pay the tax and middlemen. The old man calculated that Sai's net income would then be 60%. That's a minimum of 900 big gold. But no, his share would be 50%. And in exchange, Johnson would sell 6 more of them. The day before at the summit of Bardo Volcano, it is well known that a flock of red dragons live at the top of this volcano. Regarding the red dragons, they are considered to be the strongest kind of dragons, capable of destroying a small country in an instant. And so, few people risk fighting them. Therefore, Mount Bardo has become a real paradise for red dragons. Sai didn't expect anything else. The title of the strongest among their kind is not just for nothing. He and Pal had been separated, and it wasn't good. He needs to find her soon. He has summoned the foxes to help. Their job was to kill the dragon, being careful not to maim. They used a good trick, desiccation, sucking out the dragon's life force. The red dragon is stronger than the lick, but you have to fight 5 at once. Restraining chains wrapped around the opponent's body. Sai imprisoned the captured dragon in a vault. At the same time, the dragon Pal was eliminated alone. The girl decided to encourage the hero with a kiss. He did not consider himself as such, but to Pal, he was always a hero. She was sure that no matter how many dragons attacked him, he would still come out victorious. It seemed to him that Pal was more of a hero. The enemy once again overtook them in greater numbers. The dragons boorishly interrupted their flirtation, which did not please Pal. In 1 second, the girl eliminated all of them. That was the whole tale of how they caught 7 red dragons yesterday. Upon returning to the clinic, Pal rushed into Sei's arms. There were no customers yet, and after all, they had purposely put up such cheap prices so that at least someone would risk trying. In that case, they'd have to figure out how to raise their clinic's visibility among the townspeople. Since there was no one else, Pal suggested that we spend time with each other. After considering the girl's pleasant physique, Sai couldn't refuse. At the same second, the first client with an injury walked in. The prices on the signboard made him doubtful. Pal explained that treatment for 4th-class citizens cost 5 large coppers. 3rd-class citizens were served for 2 small silver coins. But first he must provide his identity card. The customer made sure that the prices here were really low. The services of priests cost 50 times as much, and if you're unlucky, you'll be charged 500 times as much. They have bona fide prices. Sai was happy to have his first long-awaited customer. Turns out he's an adventurer. Since he was a 3rd-class citizen, the treatment would cost 2 little pieces of silver. The first thing that caught his eye was his leg injury. There were bandages all over his body. Upon removing them, they discovered necrosis from exposure to poison. The bite he received was from a fanged viper. It is a strong snake-type monster with a highly toxic venom. If they don't do anything about it, he will definitely die. But curing it is quite possible. The adventurer thought that they would then charge him more money for such a severe case. But Sai didn't even think about that. He doesn't need to charge him more because there's nothing complicated here. Sai analyzed his condition. Guy learned that the number of affected areas was only 12. 3 sites with minor damage. In 5 areas tissue necrosis had begun, and in 4 places decomposition had reached the bones. To begin with, he got rid of the poison. As a result of detoxification and treatment, the patient's pain went away, and through regeneration, his body regenerated. Now he could move freely, not a scar was left on his body. Sai asked him not to get involved in any more reckless battles. The patient was still unable to realize the fact that he had been saved. He was delighted with the guy who had saved him and would even pay him something extra on top. Sai reminded him of what he had said earlier. The adventurer promised to try to avoid trouble. His name was Dawson. Sai's name was written on the sign. From now on, the customer will always remember the name of the doctor to whom he is immensely grateful. Hal wrote down the number of patients today. The next morning, Sai tackled the sale of the red dragons. At Johnson's store, Bale was the head clerk. Sai brought him muffins prepared by his maids. If they liked them, he could treat his wife and daughter. Bale gladly accepted the treat. It seems that Johnson is soon going to entrust Bale with the management of a separate branch office. Sai had heard that he had performed well in the recent negotiations for the sale of the Red Dragon. This time, the red dragon was bought by Duke Delaria. As far as he knows, he is one of the ministers and is an influential person. They agreed on a price of 2,000 large gold coins, a sum much higher than the original price. They had offers from several houses coming to them at once, so they had bidding between them. Johnson had been in the business for a long time, but this was his first time dealing with the sale of a whole red dragon. Such high prices are justified by its rarity. In addition, they have received a bulk purchase request from the Adventurers Guild. Everything is going according to plan. Sai asked to know their names. Even if they withhold all the information, Johnson will find out sooner or later. Sai can be sure that very soon he will receive his proceeds. Heading towards his clinic, Sai pondered how things would turn out next. Suddenly, one picture made him freeze with surprise. There was a huge line lined up for the clinic, stretching down the street. They had all heard about the talented doctor and were expecting him. People became aware that he had gotten rid of the ghosts that used to haunt the house. One of his clients, an old lady, praised the young talent. Not only is he fluent in healing magic, but he can also exorcise all sorts of evil. It was important that she not overwork herself either, even though he had healed her knee. Sai still couldn't understand the reason for this influx of customers. Pal believed that the information might have spread from the mouth of the loony's boyfriend of yesterday. The nickname she had given him sounded highly unusual. The last patient today was the 28th. The girl called for the next. She sensed unwanted customers on the street. On her return to the clinic, Pal said that the outside was just dung beetles. Not wanting to answer the young gentleman's questions, she offered to take care of the next patient. It seemed that the patient intake was over and they could lock the door and have dinner. The tranquility was interrupted by the heavy footsteps of several pairs of powerful boots. They were the same dung beetles that Pal had been trying to disperse outside. One of them turned to Sai with a look of displeasure. The girl, who could not afford to address her young master so rudely, hurled a feather pen at him. Sai tried to subdue her. He assumes they want something from him. Even so, they must choose their expressions. The adventurer admitted he is not good at formal speeches, but he will try. His name is Darnan, head of security. They are from the Adventurers Guild. Sai is suspected of violating the guild rules, so he would like the guy to follow them. From behind the adventurers, Soldrick stealthily approached the adventurers. Sai told him not to serve dinner yet. They were scared of the creepy guy and huddled together. Sai called their attention to an important detail. He and Pal are as one. If she doesn't go, neither will he. The creepy lady also instilled fear, so they wanted to leave as soon as possible. Adventurers Guild, Kingdom of Alderto, Capital City Chapter. They were greeted by the head of that branch. Sig gave their names. The head of the department had previously known the name Pal. The head of the purchasing department, Rosie, volunteered to explain the situation of their arrival. Their department had found out that the adventurers was violating the guild's rules. Adventurers who are members of their guild, if they sell materials from monsters, they must offer them to the guild first. Of course, he knows that. He had registered with the guild just recently and had looked up their rules at that time. Then he should understand that the red dragon he sold to Johnson's store should have been offered to their guild first. Sai replied that he understood perfectly well that he should have given that dragon to the guild. In that case, they took it as a violation of the rules. Rosie, addressing the guildmaster, stated that since he had violated their buying rules, knowing full well that he had done so, he should be punished. She suggested just handing him over to that customer. The branch head asked her to calm down. Pal was extremely dissatisfied with this attitude towards her master. Everyone felt a terrible pressure. Sai asked the girl to dispense with the manhandling. She was ready to slit their throats to shut them up. He, on the other hand, wanted her to behave. The maid declared that she would never obey if asked by anyone other than the young master. Sai admitted that he had indeed sold the red dragon to another store, but he didn't think he had violated guild rules by doing so. Guy was surprised by the personality of the department head. She was the first to notice what Pal intended to do and tried to stop the purchasing chief. And even now, she was trying to remain calm. Since he knows the guild rules before selling the dragon to Johnson's store, he tried to take an assignment for the red dragon. However, he was denied the errand, and thus he couldn't sell the dragon to them. You can't call it a rule violation. Rosie wasn't going to believe such nonsense. The guildmaster asked her to calm down by taking matters into her own hands. She wants to make sure if it's true. It's important to know if Mr. Si remembers the name of the administrator who served him. He didn't ask her name, but he remembers that it was a blonde-haired girl of small stature. The guildmaster ordered Ilmina to be brought in. Sai just said it was a blonde short girl and she already realized who it was. She knows all the staff by name, but she doesn't know what's going on inside her guild. It's hard to believe. Maybe the reason is because of the number of people. or there's a person somewhere among the staff who runs everything secretly from the guildmaster, and that person is most likely Rosie. Darnan brought Ilmes, who was hiding in the basement. The girl admitted that she was the one who had registered Mr. Sai as an adventurer, but she hesitated to answer whether it was true that she had refused to give Mr. Sai the commission for the dragon. Ilmida declared that nothing of the sort had happened. Ilmida's words contradicted the boy's words. Rosie took her side. The guildmaster decided to look into the matter. Favoritism to one side would only distort the truth. Pal realized that now was the perfect time to take advantage of one special thing. Sai remembered that he wanted so much to remember the day he became an adventurer that he made a note. Ilmida clarified his details. Before completing the registration, she asked him to thoroughly familiarize himself with the rules of their guild. He could do so in their lounge area. Sai read them while standing in line. Ilmida thanked him for his preparation. If he had any questions in the future, he could contact the staff. She handed him an adventurer's identification card. In case of unwanted loss, they would issue him a new one for 3 pieces of silver. The lad informed her of the slightly rash errand he had chosen to take on. Recognizing his plan, she was surprised. She explained that it was very dangerous for someone who had just registered, assuring him that trouble was sure to come. He is given a maximum of 10 days to complete the assignment. If he delivers them the red dragon later than 10 days, he will be fined 1/10 of the set reward, which is 100 gold coins. Sai, being completely calm, replied that he would simply pay this fine if he failed. The administrator couldn't let an adventurer who had just registered do that. As far as he knew, adventurers were free to choose their errands. The administrator observed the same situation every year. There's always some newbie who thinks he can handle a dragon. In other words, she won't give him this assignment. There's nothing he can do about it, so he'll have to give up. Ilmida thanked him for his understanding. She thinks he is acting very wisely. There are plenty of other errands with a lower level of difficulty. If he is interested in one of them, he can contact. The guildmaster ordered Ilmes to be tied up. Rosie covered her with herself, admitting that she was merely following her instructions. She ordered her to hide in the cellar and give false testimony. This child was merely trying to prevent the reckless death of a rookie who took an unsuitable assignment. Nothing wrong with that. Do they know how many such adventurers have died in vain? This assignment came to them from an extremely famous aristocrat. If anything were to happen, the guild would have to answer to him. The guildmaster apologized sincerely for Mr. Sai being dragged into the guild's internal conflict without having anything to do with it. Right now, she couldn't say whether they were completely wrong or not. In the future, she would conduct a thorough investigation into the full background of this incident. It's already midnight and he was invited here without even getting a good night's rest. He's done for the day. He's relying on the guildmaster. The boy was looking forward to dinner. He was happy with the outcome. It looked like the admin that didn't defer to him was now in trouble, but the important thing was that they had achieved their goal by getting an apology from the guild. Later, they could negotiate on favorable terms. 3 days later, Rosie and Ilmida were put on probation and also deprived of their salaries for 3 months. 24 people, who knew everything but kept quiet, had their salaries cut for 3 months. Darnan is deprived of his salary for 1 month. The guildmaster, on the other hand, will lose his salary for 3 months. The girl was affected by the lack of sleep. Also, since Mr. Sai was the victim of this incident, she would like to pay him a compensation of 100 gold coins. This amount for a simple false accusation was a decent amount. Perhaps this was the guildmaster's way of wanting to maintain a friendly relationship with those who are in a position to deal with the red dragon. Sai thought about pretending to be displeased. That would play into his hands. If he wasn't satisfied with that, she offered 150 gold. More than that amount she can't offer. Instead of gold coins, Sai would prefer that she listen to his offer. He also thinks it would be better to soften the punishments for all the employees. He makes such concessions that she involuntarily gets a bad feeling. He can always refuse her offer and just pay the 100 gold pieces. Sai would like to get information from her. It was about the Manish's mansion. The guildmaster knew that rumors were rampant throughout the capital that Lord Sai had banished the spirits from the place. That those spirits were the members of the Manish's family themselves, she did not know. The girl thinks that such a thing is quite possible if this is the very same mansion. Sai told of the Manish's head's plan to punish those responsible for their deaths. The guildmaster apologized that she was unlikely to be able to help them here. She had arrived in the capital after the incident had happened, and she wasn't sure if there was anyone who remembered the events of 20 years ago in detail. In addition, she has briefly read the records of the case and can say that several people have already been arrested. They were poor people from the slums who wanted to make a profit. Most of the items they stole were recovered. Say had noticed that the criminals were not from the slums. The murdered men had told him quite the opposite. She should wonder why only members of the Manish's family were killed. Considering the size of the mansion, there must have been servants who work at night as well. However, none of them were hurt. He does not ask that they find the culprit, just enough to find information about the servants that worked for them at the time, where they are now and what they are doing. As soon as the guildmaster finds out where they live, he will inform him at once, and then he will deal with it himself. He won't complain if it doesn't work out. They have an agreement. It might take some time, but she would do the searching. Lastly, she said that it won't be long before rumors that they have defeated the Red Dragon spread throughout the kingdom. She believes they will soon have an audience with the king. She asked to inform the guildmaster about receiving an invitation from the king. The guildmaster thinks she has enough power to protect him from the king's influence. She thanked him for his fruitful cooperation. Pal noticed that the young master was much kinder than her. It seemed to him that this was her way of sucking up to him. Outside, they were overtaken by rain harming her hair. They formed an alliance with the guild, just as Sai had planned. If they could find at least a couple people this way, they could cool the anger of Soldric and his family. The name of Pomerus, the Fire of Calamity, survived in the old memories of the guildmaster. It was an unforgettable childhood tragedy. Since ancient times, the elves were the protectors of the great forest, who looked down on their subspecies, the Dark Elves. However, 200 years ago, the Dark Elves rebelled, and so began a war between the two races. At first the elves had the upper hand, but at one point everything changed. The Dark Elves had a new leader. Their leader was a girl with beautiful black hair. There are few dark hair holders among the elves, and even fewer elves with black eyes. This rare dark elven girl ruled the darkness, which led the elves to their demise. When the elf leader bowed his head to her in defeat, she stepped in front of him and laughed loudly. Elmanuis could only cringe and shiver in fear when she saw that ghastly smile. Pomerus, the Fire of Calamity. Pomerus Montri. That name is engraved in the soul of every elf. The elf leader and his family were executed. Only one child was spared. That child was her, Elmanuis. Having lost her family and her clan name, she left the forest and became an adventurer. Why is the Fire of Disaster here? She had heard rumors that she had left her position as chief some 10 years ago. Is the Fire of Disaster here because of her? Elmanuis has never had and does not wish to have any dealings with her. She thought about leaving her position as guildmaster. She's not even 230 years old yet. She doesn't want to die young. Duke Ardek's house. News had reached the Duke that Delaria had given the king a red dragon as a gift. He was sure that Vinis had everything under control. Count Vinis, the head of a side branch of the ducal Ardek family, and himself wanted to ask how things turned out like this. He admitted that he had indeed failed to buy back the red dragon from the Adventurer Guild, but he had failed mainly because of the person who had captured the dragon. It seems that the Duke is not aware of it yet. The dragon was caught by none other than Mr. Sagel, whom he banished without consulting anyone. The Lord sold the dragon to Johnson's store, a subsidiary of Baldigo. Nor did the Duke seem to know the current financial situation of the Duchy of Ardek. In the Aldrath Kingdom, aristocrats are divided into two types: feudal aristocrats who have territories and court aristocrats who have no territories. All 6 ducal houses are court aristocrats. They live mainly off the aristocratic pension that is distributed by the state. Their Ardek family is renowned for its financial power compared to the other ducal houses, but this is solely due to the support of Baldigo. Baldigo continued to support them financially, only because of Mr. Sagel, the grandson of Baron Digo, who is the head of the company. Now that Mr. Sagel has been ousted, they can no longer count on their help. Even more, they can demand the immediate repayment of all the loans received from them. This was something the Duke didn't even think about. And this problem is much bigger than just some red dragon. The consequences would not only affect the ducal house, but also the side branches. Vinis asked if the Duke had a plan ready to compensate for the lost budget. Vinis felt it necessary to bring the issue forward to the House Council. A House Council is a meeting where the main and side branches of the Ardek family discuss the most important issues. The Duke took this as a threat. To begin with, Vinis remarked that the banishment of Mr. Sagel was an important matter that should have been discussed at the House Council in the first place. First, he banished his son without discussing it with anyone, which had already caused a bunch of problems. Then the fact that this same son had killed a red dragon was added on top of that. And as if that wasn't enough, he also sold the dragon to the Duke of Delaria, a house with whom they have a bit of a beef. If Mr. Mongolok doesn't want to lose his place, he should rather defeat a monster equal in power to the red dragon. Vinis hoped the Duke would make a plan to solve further funding before the next House Council. Vinny's realized that he had to hustle faster and at least forcefully make Mr. Sagel the head of the family. Sai and Pal made a pass at the bluff, enjoying the beautiful view in the enveloping silence. Pal wondered what the young lord wanted these medicinal herbs for and what was the need for them if he had healing magic. With their help, the lad wants to create an improved soap formula. The current soap only irritates his skin. Oh, and Pal was saying the other day that her hair has become dry. Beautiful view, fresh air and delicious food. And he didn't mention the beautiful girl sitting next to him. The girl was overly touched by the Lord's flattery. For a moment he forgot how strong she was. This medicinal plant is called aloe. It will help moisturize your hair and skin. Pal suggested planting this plant near the mansion right away. That's how they built the bed. They had already added a fertilizer of black earth and humus to the soil, and if they added more mana on top, Sai was sure that they would grow like yeast. He used Grace, a spell that bestows holy power on an object. Even with this bed in their use, there's still a lot of free land left. Guy hoped they would grow very quickly, then Pal would be happy. She kept talking about moisturizing. Artemis brought tea. Her smile relieved any fatigue. Pal reminded her that Artemis was still a child. The most important thing is the fact that she is cute. The girl declared that it was a dangerous addiction. He reassured her that in his eyes no one would outdo Pal. Artemis inquired about what she was cooking. It was a very good thing. When she finished here, she and Artemis could take a bath together. I wonder if it would work on the spirits. Sai was pleased that they were having fun together. The aloe really improved Pal's hair and skin. It was like she was 100 years younger. She couldn't wait to tell her master about it. Sai remembered not to think about Pal's age. So, with a great mood and lovely hair, the girl started the day at the clinic. A woman brought them a gift of vegetables from their vegetable garden. She noticed that Pal was prettier today than usual. She saw that she was having fun. Pal is a girl after all. Such conversations are always pleasant for her. The woman asked to share a piece with her. She was followed by others. It seems that she had purposely made more soap yesterday to give out to try. Sai decided it was better to focus on the cure. A patient with black hair and eyes came to see him. A rare combination, just like Pal, except he's a different race. And this scar, probably from a knife or a sword, looks like it's been years since he was wounded. Sai asked how he lost his eye and who his parents were. But the customer defiantly replied that it was none of his business. If he kept quiet, Sai would not treat him. Since he had paid, they would give him his money back if he insisted. Sai told Pal to give him his money back for the treatment. He left the clinic immediately. This boy's behavior was pissing Pal off. Sai was sure that he would come back again. Pal informed the gentleman with great panic that the soap had run out and asked for more. Sai remarked that it was her fault, for she was giving it away to everyone. She tried to convey to him that a woman's hair and skin was her life. She just couldn't help but share such a great soap. Oh, and the plants grow so well. She offered to put the soap on sale as soon as possible. Sai is busy with his research right now, so he doesn't have much time for soap. The maid decided that they could hire someone to do it and pay for his services from the proceeds of the soap. For a while afterward, the guy kept thinking about how to pull off the soap sale. He had succeeded in his experiment, which he thought depended on the right amount of mana. There was a knock on the door. Soldrick informed the lord of the arrival of the king's messenger. He knows that he is a very busy man. The business on which the envoy had come to see him was that a red dragon had been presented to his majesty the other day as a gift. As it later turned out, it was Mr. Sai who killed it. His majesty admired his feat. The messenger was asked to tell him that he would like to reward him with the Order of the Great Flame and 1,000 gold pieces. The Order of the Great Flame is of the 2nd class, and there are 5 in total. In his position, this is the highest order he can receive. The guildmaster said that it was possible that he would be invited, but to also be granted the order. It seems that killing the red dragon had a much greater effect than he had hoped. The messenger asked if he could count on his agreement. Of course, Sai agreed. He suddenly realized that this order might turn the ducal house against him. Perhaps he should visit his grandmother right after he received it. Sodric informed the lord of another matter. Artemis was now in the warehouse behind the house. She proudly reported that she had already searched them for poison and hidden blades, but they refused to talk. The floor was strewn with the corpses of the assassins. The toughest one left. They're literally pouring salt on his wounds and he hasn't made a sound. She looks so pretty, but she tortures them without blinking an eye. She's undead after all. Sai decided to deal with them himself and sent the girl to the mansion. As Sai realized, the assassins were hired by the ducal house. It seems that he doesn't plan to answer. He probably got wind of Sai's killing of the red dragon and the awarding of the order, so he decided to get rid of him as soon as possible. But as long as this mansion is guarded by Soldrick, no assassin will get past. And even if they do get past Soldrick, Pal is always right next to him. The boy realized this wasn't going to work. After all, this power wasn't his, so Sai would have to become stronger himself. He analyzed Sage, Beck, Dreyros, Amanist, Jules. They are assassins from the secret guild of the Night Crow. The assassin decided that it was the magic of evaluation, and he would never learn more. Sai saddened him by telling him it wasn't magic. Sage came from the Imperial slums, first killing a man at the age of 11. He had an accomplice, his older brother Mash, but he was caught and executed, and Sage escaped to the kingdom, where he was picked up by the Night Raven Guild. The assassination of Count Bax was his doing. The assassin became convinced that it was impossible to obtain so much information through evaluation magic. The assassin wondered what he was. Sai described himself as a simple novice healer. He should thank them, for he was able to get a lot of useful information. There are 5 branches of the Night Raven in the royal capital. We should pay a visit there and verify the client's name. Constantly fighting off assassination attempts is a bit annoying, so maybe it would be better to get rid of them all at once. If they didn't keep quiet, he wouldn't have gotten the idea to destroy an entire guild. Sage stated that they weren't the kind of people who could be easily defeated. Sai then decided that they would help him in his research. According to the analysis, the order to kill him was coordinated with Balanbo, one of the 3 top leaders. He should now be in this branch of the guild. There are so many people dressed in black wandering around in a residential area, and no one has reported it yet. Most likely, the superiors in charge of this neighborhood have some connections with Night Crow. The operation will start at the back door. Hal, of course, believes that the young master can stand up for himself, but she still asked him to be careful. The girl eliminated several guild members. The following actions are reserved for him. Using flight, he caught up with them from above. The men in black spotted the enemy and pointed their weapons at him. He eliminated them with desiccation. This is the Sage Stone, also called the Philosopher's Stone. Countless magicians and alchemists have worked night and day to try to create it, but no one has succeeded. But that's the way it used to be. Sai entered the guild in order to finish off those who were hiding inside. He was going to take their life energy. They would die in about a couple days. The Sage Stone was capable of granting eternal life. By absorbing the life energy of others, it transfers it to the wearer, thus prolonging their life. In the same way, it can heal any disease and heal any wound. It is a coveted item for all rulers. If people knew that Sai had created this stone, the fame of it would have spread all over the world. The energy he gathered from the people in this place would last for about 10 years. By the way, he can only control the stone thanks to this magic circle. Otherwise, it would have gotten out of control and dried up long ago. One must be extremely careful. Sai stopped at the stairs, contemplating where he should go. He followed down, from where a sword was thrust at him out of the darkness. Sai miraculously dodged, but the blade managed to graze his cheek. The dark-haired man asked who he was. Sai identified himself as his target. The opponent pretended as if he didn't know what he meant. Sai remarked that he himself had attacked him out of the blue, so he might as well not play the fool anymore. His stance was like that of a knight, but he himself preferred to hide his title. The opponent was about to fight, displaying his strength, but he did not have time, being deprived of his vitality by the drying up. The missing sword crashed to the floor with a clatter. It was a pity that he had time to hit Sai. The top of the secret guild was waiting for Sai. The distinguished figure of a guy resembling the head of the Night Crows met the pesky intruder with a gnashing of teeth. Someone with a bear-like body released his claws to lash out at his foe and give him a good thrashing, but crashed into the area of the holy barrier. The enemy didn't think that a guild filled with experienced assassins would be stirred up by some brat. Sai was right when he said that he should have chosen better who to make his enemy. He tapped his shoe. The floor fell from under Sai's feet, but thanks to his ingenuity, he reacted in time, remaining level thanks to his flight. It seemed like that was how he ruined the whole atmosphere for them, but it just so happened that he could fly. Then the foe gave up and asked what he wanted. From this distance, Sai can even recognize his name, and his name is Jags, and the head of the guild is this maid. Jags was surprised at this judgment, showing that a slave girl can't be the head. His mind is completely blank. Sai reasoned that it didn't matter whether he was right or wrong. After all, they would both die. The maid pacified Jags by admitting that she was indeed the head of the guild. Sai explained his intentions to her. He wants to find out the name of the person who ordered his murder and destroy their branch to the ground. The head replied that she will give him any information he wants, but she can't let him kill them. With her death, the orphans they help will be doomed to certain death. The boy decided that appealing for sympathy was useless. They are raising these orphans to make murderers out of them. The maid asked to spare them, as it seemed to him her actions did not match her words. Her charm didn't work. Very quickly she showed her real self. Unfortunately, Sai's blessing is very powerful. Now, it was time to punish her for lying. The guy was going to finish her off with a tempestuous. Jags lashed out to cover her with his body. Looks like Jags isn't protecting her because of the charm effect. He couldn't let his boss die. She was frightened for a close comrade who had given all his life forces to preserve her life. Sai recognized that she had very loyal subordinates. As a sign of respect, he will give her a choice. Either he will extract all information from her corpse, or she will obey him. If she chooses the second option, he will let them all live. But from this day forward, she will be obliged to obey all his orders. Bear reminded his boss that he could still fight. It was obvious that he was no match for him. So, finding no other option, she agreed, since that was the price for their survival. Using contract magic, Sai declared that if she dared to betray him, death would seem like heaven to her. Afterward, he imprisoned her in shackles. Hal was shocked that Sai had subjugated another lowly. Guy declared that he did not belong to such. It turned out that Bolonbo is the leader of the Night Crows who was just unlucky in height. And in fact, she's much older than Sai. She got information about the client that ordered him. As he requested, she disbanded all the assassination squads. In the future, she will focus all her energies on expanding their information network. And that once again proves that she is definitely not a lowly. Sai returned vitality to everyone who recognized him as the new leader. He also wants the orphans in her orphanage to be allowed to do whatever they want to do for themselves. Whether they want to become assassins or farmers, only they have the right to choose. He's also ordered to find kids who are interested in farming and soap making. Sai wants to teach them the basics of writing, reading, and counting. Bolombo has the right person for the job. Maddie's Alban. He was originally one of the king's knights. He was expelled from the knightly order because of a conflict with one nobleman. He also lost his wife and daughter in an epidemic. Bolombo said she found him when he was desperate. He takes care of every child in the orphanage. Perhaps this is his way of filling the void of losing his daughter. Bolombo repeated that she was truly grateful to the gentleman for saving their lives. The lad asked to dispense with such formalities and to be called simply Sai. The moment had come to meet the very man who had intended to kill the enemy with another man's hands. It was a recent visitor to his clinic, a black-haired guy with the same black pupils and a scar on his face. He had no choice but to spill all the information about himself. His name is Pads. He didn't know anything about his father and hadn't seen his mother in a long time. She's probably drunk somewhere. He'd had his eye done to him by a rowdy aristocrat. Sai carelessly sympathized with him. Guy used the analysis to examine it. He reassured him that it was quite treatable. He figured he needed that eye for something. Puds wants to be an adventurer. Sai offered to let him work for him. Pads repeated that he wanted to be an adventurer. Then Sai inquired how he was going to fight with his skill as a farmer. Pads got very angry, not realizing how he knew about his skill. Sai was willing to cure him if he agreed to work for him. The agitated guest decided that this was his way of deciding to grab his weak spot. Sai remarked that if he couldn't overpower him, then the monster wouldn't be able to. His skill was not good for fighting monsters. As a doctor, Sai has a humble desire to save as many lives as possible. He's not going to treat him if it becomes his ticket straight to the grave. Pads agrees to work for him, but he has one condition. He wants to return the favor to the guy who took his eye. Sai would have advised him against getting into a fight and suggested he just forget about it. But resentment lodged deep within him, and gradually that hatred built up over the years. Sai understood the source of his anger. After all, his little brother liked to leave a cut on him with the other. Pads didn't even know who he was going to take revenge on. But he remembered his face well, so he asked for help finding him. He's about his age, red-haired, fat and petite. Pads showed him the location of his mole. He also had a nasty look, and he called himself great. Too many matches between the abuser and his brother Mongolok. If this is who Sai thinks he is, he's a bone in his throat, too. Pads sensed a kindred spirit in him, for he too knows the man. Sai agrees to help him, but as soon as he was done with his eye, Pads his employee. Pads promised to keep his end of the bargain, so let him keep their agreement too. Sai knew that in reality, if a commoner went up against an aristocrat, a simple arrest would not do the trick here. They might be beaten to a pulp, if not killed altogether. For that reason, a better plan must be devised. But deep down, he's not even surprised that Mongolok is trouble. It's a small world. It was the job of Puds, who has the gift of the god of fertility, to look after these beds. Soldric reminded him that he was now Lord Sai's servant and had to watch his speech. Starting today, he and Pal would be teaching him the life of a servant, so he should be prepared for that. At every inappropriate little thing, Soldric punished him with a blow. As long as he serves Mr. Sai, no one will get any indulgence. Anyone who undergoes PAL and Soldrick's training can become a perfect servant. Sai wished him good luck. A well-dressed man complained to the clinic, reporting a sick man in their home in need of Dr. Sai's services. Would he have free time to go and see him? Pal could see from his posture that he was clearly a servant of a high-ranking aristocrat. It's a murky story. The girl apologized, but they don't make house calls. The stranger very much asked for an exception. Sai came out of the room, ready to go. He came to their clinic because they need help. Oh, and the visiting hours are running out. The servant was truly grateful for the help. He will take him to the outskirts of the royal capital. Regarding the identity of the patient, he urged them not to divulge further information to third parties. It's Margrave Zoldo's daughter Rosalia. Margrave Zoldo is one of the leading military houses in the entire kingdom. He carefully guards their borders from the Kingdom of Malta. The young lady is extremely emaciated. The family doctor cannot make an accurate diagnosis. The doctor is his last hope, begging him to help Mistress Rosalia. Sai promised to do everything in his power. The painting depicted the girl herself in the prime of her powers. Upon entering the chambers, Sai became alarmed. Her skin is pale and her breathing is weak. Even a cursory glance is enough to tell that she doesn't have much left. About 10 days ago, she fainted and gradually weakened. 4 days ago, it came down to what he could see. She needed an emergency diagnosis. The servants had to release the lady from the blanket to analyze. Rosalia's illness is a lack of mana. Mana is possessed by almost anyone. Some have more, some have less. It works on the same principle as physical strength. Once you've used up some of it, you can always regenerate it by resting. But in her body, mana is not only not restored, it gradually leaves the body. In order to find out the cause, Sai needs to know if something unusual happened to her before the symptoms started. Shortly before, she was at a tea party organized by Earl Tucker. Sai concluded that her symptoms were caused by a poison in her system. We need to figure out when and who did it. They should send a message to the Margrave asking him to investigate. Sai will do what a doctor should do. He already understood the condition of their young mistress, so he can begin treatment. The body's mana regeneration function has been damaged. If the poison is removed and a few places are healed, she will be able to return to her previous state. To begin with, using detoxification, he cleansed the body and healed it. Now he has given her back her ability to regenerate mana. Regeneration required a large amount of mana. The servant was worried about the doctor, but the doctor focused on the patient. As a result of the treatment, the girl woke up feeling much better. She'll be recovering for a couple more days, so they should make sure she doesn't overexert herself. Rosalia's servant thanked him from the bottom of his heart, not knowing how to express his gratitude. Mr. and Mrs. will be incredibly happy. Pal was worried about Saya. He pushed himself to the point of exhaustion too often. He'd been treating patients at the clinic all day, and then there's this. Until they reach the mansion, she prescribes him energy restoring knee pads. Pal. However, this is the first time Sai hears of the poison causing mana deficiency. The tea party at Earl Tucker's has not gotten out of his head. A couple days later, slums. Dawson had finished work and was about to get a drink at the bar. A man collapsed face down on the surface right in front of him. When he lifted the old man's head, it became clear that instead of his usual face, he had something eerie, colored black. Sai had been training with pads to teach him how to fight and build his fighting skills. He was able to withstand Pal and Soldrick's training and is still absorbing new knowledge every day. Even Sai admits that Pad's learning speed is amazing, but his swordsmanship is lame. If he really became an adventurer, he would have died in the nearest swamp. It's a good thing Sai stopped him. He told him to try to perfect his movements, not to worry about speed. He wouldn't beat anyone with inept swings. Starting today, they would pump his muscles, starting with basic exercises. Mongolok's skill is Sword Emperor. Sai doesn't think he pays attention to training at all. But even so, Pads will still have to master a lot more before he can challenge his brother, the Emperor of the Sword, Akka the Slacker, and the Tenacious Farmer. Sai can't wait to find out who turns out to be stronger. Dawson arrives at the doctor's office with a matter of the utmost importance. It's best if he goes and sees for himself. All the slums are full of corpses. Dawson showed him the same old man he had accidentally stumbled upon while walking to the bar, and then found a bunch of others. His black face looked as if it had been doused with ink. He was afflicted with blackface disease. It is better known as Lloyd-Lefs-Brossen's disease. One of the symptoms is the coloring of the face black. That's why it got its second name. 1,000 years ago, this disease caused a whole epidemic. Worried about the young master, Pal could not allow him to go near the sick man. It was important to know if Dawson had touched the sick. Apparently he had to do so, so there was a high probability that he was already infected. The incubation period of the disease is 5 days. After that period, it is likely that the disease will manifest itself. The mortality rate of black-face disease is 80%. The symptoms alone are a death sentence. Dawson could not believe he was going to die. Blackface disease is highly contagious. Considering the population density of the neighborhood, there are probably over 100 sick people. But where's the guarantee that the slums are the main source of spread? Maybe the disease came here from another neighborhood altogether. If it continues to spread at this rate across the capital, thousands, nay, tens of thousands of people will die. For this reason, the slums will have to be isolated. Pal noticed that there are hardly any food stores in the slums. If they isolate the neighborhood, they cannot avoid deaths from starvation. Dawson was gripped by panic, for either way they would die. Sai did not see this as a reason to give up. They need to limit the rate at which the disease spreads. They would suppress the growth of the sick and could concentrate on finding a way out. Sai asked Dawson to bring all the infected here for treatment. The fact that he could heal from it gave him great hope. Sai promised to do his best. Dawson realized he was already sick, so he would help him until he was off his feet himself. Pal received orders to relay the information to the Adventurers Guild. She must also make arrangements with them for provisions. The title of Guild Master should be enough for them to reach the king himself. They need the help of the Licks as well. One of them should get to Soldrick, have him prepare a carriage. We need to transport the sick to the clinic. He can examine them there. The found infected were placed on the floor. They were asked to give their name if they could speak. The guys from the guild also helped them. It was good that the area around the clinic wasn't cluttered and there was no need to worry about a place for the sick. Sai was successful in treating the injured. He didn't think he would face the black-face disease again. In his previous life, these faces were a daily routine for him. Because of their contagiousness, the patients can get sick again. Therefore, his tasks include relieving symptoms and helping the body produce antibodies. Their main goal is to prevent new and old patients from coming back. Pal saw that the master was working too hard, but he tried to cure as many people as possible. Treating so many people without stopping is tiring, but he can't stop. The sick are even worse now. The guildmaster asked him to give her a moment. The girl noisily sipped her tea before proceeding with the report she had come with. The slums in the commoners' neighborhood are isolated. It can be said that the black-face disease is under their control. But, as they predicted, famine has set in. It couldn't be said that it wasn't their fault. But out of two evils, it was the better choice. It seemed to her that the black-face disease was just a childish scarecrow. The Adventurer Guild began to act as soon as they received his message. But it did nothing to stop the spread of the disease. Before they knew it, the sick began to appear in every corner of the city. In a panic, most of the aristocrats decided to pack their bags and leave the capital. This is how the disease spread throughout the kingdom. The scale was so great that even the government began to move. They managed to close the borders of the country in time. Because of this, the scope of the epidemic is limited to just the borders of their country. Right now, all the departments of the Adventurer Guild are spreading the methods to fight against the black-face disease that Mr. Sai told them about. But it seems like this outbreak will not subside for a while. They will hope that it will have some effect. They need to take it slow, one step at a time. They can't relax, little by little, but they will improve the situation in the country. And yet Pal is disappointed in the uselessness of the priests. The priest's magic can only completely destroy the disease. That means the body will not be able to produce antibodies and the disease will continue to rampage. Their magic is simply not suited for this kind of disease. It's a matter of requirements. There's nothing you can do about it. The guild has already given the temple a list of requirements for physicians, but there aren't many healer mages among the aristocracy who can fully meet Sai's requirements. We'll have to use the priest's healing magic, even if it's a temporary solution. It seems that most of the infected in aristocratic circles are servants. The masters can rely on the priests, but the temples charge too high a price for treatment. As for the servants, they may act proud, but they're still servants. If Sai can quell the disease in the slums, we should take care of that issue as well. A week later, Rosie handed him a pass. He must return today. The guildmaster approved of his leaving, but she will still ask Sai to be careful not to catch the black-face disease. Rosalia's faithful servant was insanely happy to see him after so long. Saya apologized for making him fuss over preparing the carriage. He was honored to have helped him. Mr. and Mrs. never ceased to praise him among their friends in the aristocratic circle. He was going to take the doctor to the homes of the aristocrats, where the sickest were, in the hope that he would save the nobles and this country. The blackface disease that had swept the country had subsided after 3 months. Thousands of years ago, the world first learned about blackface disease. Too much water has flowed since then and the method of treatment has long been lost. That Sai was able to find a cure, Elmanuis called it a miracle. Kai couldn't tell her that he knew how to deal with the disease, because he had witnessed the first epidemic. Years ago, people had hoped for help from a great sage. That time it took him many years to find a cure. He never got to see the world. Elmanuis was probably worried for nothing, but advised him to try to stay away from the temples for a while. As she was relaying the details of the method of curing the black-face disease to them, she heard some priests discussing it. In their opinion, Mr. Sai is a direct threat to the authority of the temple. Kai had hoped that they could mutually help each other, but it seems things aren't going as smoothly as they would like. She would also like to report to him on the progress of the guild's investigation to find the causative agent. The likelihood that neighboring countries did it is very slim. After all, the cure has long been lost. The guildmaster doesn't think there's any country that would risk hosting an epidemic of blackface disease. Sai asked if they had tested the theory that animals don't get the disease, but could very well be carriers of it. It would be nice if they at least knew when roughly the first patient had gotten sick, but they would figure out how to solve that question. The boys were waiting for the gentleman at the mansion. Sai complimented them on their work on the field. Pal offered him a bath, dinner, or her. He would have liked dinner first, understanding her hints perfectly well, but could not answer otherwise because of the children. The girl looked at the boys with displeasure. Maddie's took care of the orphans by showing them how to use a knife. Pads reported that everything was going smoothly with the crops. The harvest would be decent. Sai instructed him to gather a new batch of aloes. The stock was running low. Pads was very obedient. Pal's education is having a good effect. Even too good. Pads, Maddie's, Loli Balombo and her children, the mansion getting busier every day. He's still got things to do, so he'll wait until things settle down. Soldrick has brought the gentleman all the documents for the soap sale. Every day there are more and more ladies willing to do anything for him. Better always have a couple on him if he doesn't want to be eaten to death. Looks like there won't be any problems getting into mass production thanks to the help of the kids. A grand plan came into Sai's head. Why don't they buy some vacant land from Sandal and build a factory there? Their workshop in the mansion is too small for big business, and thanks to Pads, they will always have a steady crop of aloe, so they don't have to worry about raw materials. This could come in handy. They arrived at Bale's store. The store hadn't even opened yet and there was already such a line. Puds expressed his amazement. Pal continued to control him, reminding him to watch his language. They will enter through the back door. Initially, only the ladies were interested in soap. But when Sai listed soap as a preventative against blackface disease, rumors of it spread quickly among aristocrats and their servants. They could no longer sell it at his polyclinic, so they decided to market everything through Bale's store. Rose, Bale's daughter, is enlivened by seeing Mr. Sai. He and she had not seen each other for a long time. Sai thought about the fact that he and Rose have similar hair color, which makes him feel attached to her. It was as if Pal read his thoughts and flashed. The girl made him jealous of the little girl and reminded him that he had her for that. Ush, Bale's wife, came out to meet Si with the soap she had brought. She herself had noticed the growing popularity of his soap. Rose added that it is so popular that they are even afraid to carry it with them to the public baths, for there it would be stolen immediately. Taking over the conversation, Ush admitted that they are actually swamped with orders. Even a small increase in the volume of batches would be their salvation. He thinks they will meet the deadline. The medicinal herbs will be provided by Pads, and the rest of the ingredients can be purchased from Bale as soon as he pays their share from the last batch. The kids are willing to help in any way they can, and the popularity of the soap is only growing. There seems to be no trouble with business. Balombo unexpectedly thanked Mr. The children have gotten jobs and are happily spending their days. The strong children have been sent to work in the fields and the nimble ones are making soap. In the future, they will become decent farmers and soap makers, and will be able to live without daily grueling training. And it was Mr. Sai who gave them that opportunity. Then the boy decided to thank her in return. He is just glad that another problem has been solved. Maybe in this life he will have a chance to see the edge of the world. Pal was delighted with the young lord's new outfit. They were going to the castle. Due to the increasing spread of the black face disease, it was decided to temporarily postpone his awarding ceremony of the Order of the Great Flame. It will finally be held. The maid seemed as if he was feeling agitated. Sai admitted that he probably did. He hadn't visited the castle since he left home. The carriage stopped abruptly. The path was blocked by an overturned cart. Something strange was going on in this street. There seemed to be an atmosphere of danger surrounding them. The panic was caused by the bandits who had apparently come to their heart's content. Sai felt that there were a couple of unpleasant personalities waiting for him in the castle. Pal decided to go out and deal with them, leaving the lord inside. as she felt there was no reason for him to get his hands dirty. Pal realized that women aren't usually described that way, but she was so trustworthy. After analyzing the situation, Sai found that the coachman was dead. The reins had been cut and the horses had escaped. The hostiles decided to cut off all their escape routes. The boy flinched as a hoarse breath escaped from the attendant's chest, meaning he was still alive. The bandits fled when the patrolmen came to the noise. Suddenly, they pointed their swords at the innocent Sai. They regarded it as an attempt on the guard's life using magic. Sai explained that they were on their way to the palace at His Majesty's invitation, but they insisted on going with them. He treated the circumstances with complete equanimity and calmness, subduing the infuriated Pal. If she attacked the regular patrolmen, they would certainly not escape prosecution. He was the only one arrested. Neither Pal, with weapons in her hands, nor the escaped bandits were even touched, even though their assassination attempt had failed, but somehow they still managed to capture him. Guard post, dungeon. It's been 4 days since he was arrested. There are no windows here, though, so he's not sure. No one comes here. Water and food are not to be dreamed of. He's only alive because of the magic of life. An ordinary person would have been dead long ago. They dared to arrest the guest of the king himself. How big is the big shot behind all this? He was blessed by the arrival of the one he had waited for so long. Pal rushed to him with a bunch of keys. All Sai had been doing lately was treating people, so this could be considered a good vacation. Despite the situation, the girl said that it would be better if he spent more time on her. They found out that there was a temple behind it all. The archbishop was pulling all the strings. The blackface disease story must have hit him hard. What a conflicted man. As for His Highness, he dropped all charges against Sai and also issued a detention order for all those who had made his arrest. The archbishop is at large, which is to be expected. The influence of the temple over this country is too great. He thinks the king had no choice but to hush up the matter. Guy finally stepped into the light, and the first thing he saw was the bandits being detained and a worried Elmanuis. She felt guilty that his rescue had been delayed. He was grateful that the guildmaster had reached out to him. Pal herself would never have been able to reach the king, so her help came in handy. The attendant apologized to the lord, for it was his fault that he was hurt. He even healed him on the day of the attack. His gratitude to him knows no bounds. Sai replied that the attack was unexpected and he was just glad that everyone was unharmed. The king's own guest was arrested by ordinary guards. Besides, they didn't even feed him. After interrogation, they would be severely punished. He was now going to be taken to the palace to ensure that he rested. The order ceremony would take place in a few days. Sai felt it necessary to thank the guildmaster properly. 2 days later, the inner garden of the palace, Her Highness Princess Lucia warmly greeted a close friend. She and the princess are about the same age, and there's not much difference in their statuses. So before his exile, they often saw each other and had conversations. She heard that he was stripped of his ducal title. He now lives as a commoner. Sai said that the current life suits him much better than the previous one. Therefore, he is not experiencing any special difficulties. He believed Her Highness didn't call him over to admire him. The girl had a special request for him. She wanted him to heal her mother. The archbishop had already visited her, but no progress could be seen. She can't seem to give details. If Sai cures a disease that even the archbishop couldn't cure, it will hurt the temple's reputation. And it is more advantageous for the kingdom to have friendly relations with the temple. News had reached her that Sagel's magic had saved many people from the blackface disease. His healing magic is different from the temple's magic, which means it can work on her mom as well. Sai understood her request, but the king must give him the okay to act. The princess asked not to worry about it. Father has already given his approval. The king's signature and seal on the letter confirmed it. Having received the proof, Sai agreed to heal the queen. Lucia will take him to Mother's inner chambers right away. Princess Lucia and Dr. Sagel entered the chambers. Here the king of Ordreda, who had heard of the lad's exploits, was waiting for them. It was said that he had contributed greatly to the cure of the black-face disease. On behalf of the whole country, he expressed his gratitude. Even in the case of the king, Sai still remained humble. Lucia reported the need to examine Mother as soon as possible. The king entrusted the queen to him. Sai promised to do his best. That gaunt, pale face of Queen Jocelyn, that same lean neck pulled back from her collarbones were familiar to the doctor. The same symptoms were present in the Margrave's daughter. Sai proved to be exactly right in repeating what he had heard before. That 10 days ago she had fainted and gradually began to weaken. 4 days ago it had come to this state. This disease is called mana deficiency. He had already had one patient with the same symptoms. If he is right and this is really it, she will have the same source of the disease. Upon analysis, it turned out to be, as he thought, a poison. he would immediately set about healing the queen. Sai used the same sequence of magic. The most important and final stage of the cure came. Guy tensed up, putting all his strength into regeneration. Queen Jocelyn woke up. Lucia rushed to embrace this fragile woman, still unaware of what was happening. Sai didn't want the princess to go through the same experience he had. The Ordred king offered to step back for a while. He was immensely grateful to him for saving the queen. The king assured him that he would definitely repay him this debt in the future. But now he wants to be sure of something. What does he know about poison? Not much, really. According to Sai's story, he had never heard of poison causing mana deficiency before. That's how rare it is. And besides the queen, he had only had one other patient with the same symptoms. Rosalia, the Margrave's daughter. She was probably poisoned at Earl Tucker's tea party. The symptoms manifested themselves at this time. In fact, the king had recently received a report from the Margrave about a certain organization. Apparently, they were secretly supplying poison to the nobles. And the other day, Sai was imprisoned. It seems someone really didn't want him to get a chance to examine the queen. 2 days later, the award ceremony. This is where the boy met his grandfather, Baron India's Digo, slaying the Red Dragon, contributing to saving the country from the black-face disease epidemic. He had done an impressive job. Sai believed that he had come to participate in the award ceremony. His grandson is going to be rewarded for his services, else he wouldn't have come all the way to the capital. He admitted that he was tired and would like to see Pal. If tired, Sis suggested that he should fail retirement and live out his days with his grandmother at the hot springs. The old man declared that he would not retire until his tombstone. Looks like Ardek won't be in today. Sai didn't doubt it. There was no way the Duke's house would recognize his accomplishments. The old man's face showed pride in his grandson. He had heard that the little boy had healed the queen. Doing a favor for the royal family is a great deed. His Highness doesn't want to mess with the temple, so Sai thinks this time it will end as usual. They'll cut off their tails and run away, laughing. India's noticed that he was talking about the relationship between the king and the temple. His helping the queen is a different matter altogether. It's even hard to imagine that this grandfather was able to lead House Digo to its greatness in one generation. Not everyone is capable of such a feat. He may be a pervert, but he is worthy of respect. Sai should be a grandson he won't be ashamed of. At the ceremony, a member of the Adventurer Guild of the capital branch of the Ordred Kingdom, referred to as Adventurer Sai, was solemnly announced for defeating the Red Dragon. Is hereby awarded the Order of the Great Flame. Sai felt a skill being applied on him. Perhaps it was the Chancellor's evaluation. And what did he have time to see? He'll look for information about him later. Sai doesn't know him that well personally. Now the amount of the monetary reward should be announced, and that will be the end of the ceremony. The king, addressing the audience, stated that Sai's exploits were not limited to just defeating the Red Dragon. He had contributed greatly in suppressing the blackface disease and had also healed the queen. And so he grants him the title of Great Doctor. In other words, this title denotes him as a doctor who can deal with any disease. In the future, he plans to give this title to every doctor responsible for the health of the royal family. Naturally, Sai's activities in the city will not be restricted in any way. The figure of Sai's grandfather stood out among those present and supported him with applause. He is honored to receive this title from the king. From now on, the king relies on the great physician. Sai knows at what cost the king gave him the title of Great Doctor, but he planned to travel soon. The king is fine with it as long as he promises to return someday. He didn't plan to tie him to the capital with this title. But Lucia will miss him. Sai asked me to give something to the queen and princess. It's soap of their making. It has been rapidly gaining reputation lately, and Sai wanted to share samples with them. The king almost forgot about another topic of conversation. He introduced him to Chancellor Homrius Sarbs. They want to talk about his blessing and skills. Judging from what the Chancellor saw at the ceremony with his evaluation, the king already knows all about it. The king doesn't often doubt the Chancellor's word, but still wants to see everything in person. Sai revealed all his skills to him. The king was convinced that he possessed the blessing of the creator goddess, but he didn't understand why he had hidden it until now. Guy answered bluntly that if his father and mother found out, they would do anything to kill him. But it didn't matter now. He had accumulated enough strength. If the king wants to announce the news to the whole capital, he won't object. The king saw that there was some truth in his words. With this status, a handful of detractors wouldn't be a problem. Homrius would insist that this information be made public. Mr. Sagel would be officially recognized as the successor to the forces of the goddess creator, and they would be able to openly take him under their protection. That way, neither the temple nor the ducal house would dare to attack him. Sai was surprised at the Chancellor's favorable attitude toward him. He and the Margrave are old buddies, and he saved his family from the blackface disease. so he owes him a great debt of gratitude. To help him is an honor to him. Now Sei has to decide if he can trust the king and the chancellor. Guy asked them to help him with one thing. He laid out a stone and documents on the table. It was a unique item. It was this sage stone that grants immortality that he would give to his majesty if he agreed to fulfill his request. The king agreed to the deal and expected to hear his request. His hoarse, moaning cough echoed throughout the archbishop's house. His fever had not abated for too long. A servant offered to consult the great doctor, but he flatly refused, smashing everything around him. He could not allow them to ask for treatment from an insolent man who defamed the authority of the temple. One cannot expect a miracle from a man who has bought status with money. At this rate he will not last long. The archbishop may despise the great doctor, but after all, everyone is now just talking about the fact that he has received the blessing of the creator goddess. The king himself has announced it. The archbishop continued to smile, expectorating blood and not understanding why the goddess had turned her back on him. The soap that Sagel handed to the queen and princess they appreciated. They noticed how their skin and hair improved. Lucia heard that he was going on a trip, so while he is away, they won't be able to get more soap. He said they don't have to worry about that. They are continuing to improve the soap production line so that there will be no supply problems in the future. The news was a relief to them. The king offered to give Sagel to him for a case. Documents provided by Mr. Sagel confirmed that there was a bounty on his head. The guilt of the House of Ardek is undeniable. They have already sent for them. They will be announced all the charges and the appropriate punishment. He can familiarize himself with a copy of. The Duke is already imprisoned, but the king cannot destroy the whole ducal house to the ground. Therefore, they have taken appropriate measures. Sai hoped it didn't mean that the next duke would be Mongolok. The king declared that it was simply impossible. The king would have wanted Sagel to take the seat, but knew he would refuse. But who should they then appoint as the next head? The first person who comes to Sai's mind is Count Banished, but he doubts that there will be any change in the ducal house under him. He suggests they consider Viscount Eldon if they want change. Sai was confident that Banished and the other branches would not let it go that easily. A hydra that has lost its main head is easy to bend under, and he didn't care what happened to them. He has severed all ties with the Ardeks. The ducal house hasn't put the royal family on anything for a long time. This is a good chance to weaken them and get rid of a couple influential branches. The king would not want to become his enemy. Banished has noticed with each practice the rapid success of the pads, but he still had some work to do. Sai solemnly shouted to Puds that it was time to duel. Pads finally met the guy who took away his eye. After all, Sai wasn't wrong. His gaze glowed with an eerie desire for revenge. Mongolok, noticing his brother, said that he thought too much of himself since he decided to challenge the great him. Sai thinks he has the right to do so. There is nothing wrong with Mongolok coming here. The promised money has been prepared by him. Sai heard that the Duke's house suffered punishments and he was also affected. It will be difficult for him in the future. It will take much more than this amount. He needed to register with the Adventurers Guild and fight the person Sai would bring. That was the deal. The clumsy Mongolian approached his opponent and reminded him of his status as a sword emperor. Pads had serious intentions. Mongolok will receive the money regardless of the outcome of the duel as agreed. A duel between ordinary civilians was forbidden, so they needed to register as an adventurer first. The duel between Sword Emperor Mongolok and Farmer Pads was announced. The unequal power duel attracted the townsfolk. People became curious to observe the possessor of such a rare skill. Sai thanked the guildmaster for lending them this training ground. She understood that this duel was important to Sai-san. It would cost nothing for her to give him this place. She noticed the good expression on the farmer's face. He would definitely be a strong opponent. The victory will count if one of the parties faints or says they are giving up. If the steward decides it is too dangerous to continue the duel, they will stop it immediately. When attacking, Mongolok followed his principles. He believed that whoever struck first would win. They crossed swords. Pads could hardly resist the force of his powerful opponent. Mongolok sprinkled him with a lot of derogatory words, trying to dispel his fighting spirit. But Pads was not going to give up. The Sword Emperor seemed to be out of breath. The offender became free to attack, which he took advantage of. Pads descended upon him, landing a series of blows. The dispatcher ended the duel by declaring Pads victorious. The farmer stopped in bewilderment. Hearing this, Mongolok rose from the ground with a new, anger-enhanced attack. Someone else's extraneous force slammed into his body. Everyone looked at Sai, satisfied that he had accidentally broken his jaw. But Mongolok could rejoice since he now had tons of money, although it was unknown how much would go to medical expenses. The owner of the horse-drawn carriage refused his request for a ride to that creepy tower. Ever since the former Dukes of Ardek were imprisoned there, screams have been coming from the tower constantly. The Dukes were imprisoned and their house became impoverished because they squandered the entire family budget. It seems that Soldrick and the others have decided to follow them across the sky. For starters, Sai wants to go to the Empire to meet a former servant of House Manished that Gilmas found. It has been many years since Pal traveled with him alone. The last time was 280 years ago. If she's about her past life, it was fun. Back then, she was abrupt to the extreme. Pal has stated that she has always been and will always be a sweet and beautiful girl. Sai believes that is true. This inseparable couple continued their long journey.